Hi, I'm Videobob from Bob's Prop Shop. You say you're interested in a Delorean time machine replica, and you want to know all about it. Well, I'm here to answer some questions. Okay, one of the first questions you want to know is cost. Well, because market prices and things change all the time, that's not something I can answer in this video. I can only tell you that the cars turnkey sell for excess of over $100,000. So if that's outside of your budget, you need to look for some other kind of hobby. It's an expensive project. Because first we have to start with a DeLorean. The DeLoreans were made from 1981 to 1983. Really, they were made for only 1 year, but that's beside the point. And DeLoreans seem to be going up in value. They're getting harder to find. And they're costing more. They're costing $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 depending on the condition. We like to try to start with a car that's not as in perfect condition because I like to save those cars for the collectors. And these cars we're going to drill holes into. Yes, we do drill holes in the car. We do attach all of this stuff by drilling holes, and it's all permanently mounted. We're not using double-sided tape. We're not just kind of sticking things on there. It is bolted on there permanently. The cars that we build go into museums and theme parks and private collections. As of the recording of this video, we're up to about car 40. So we've been doing this for a long time. Once we have a DeLorean, you can either send us your DeLorean, maybe if you already have one, or we can find the DeLorean for you because we are pretty good at finding a decent car, and those come in either an automatic or in a stick shift. They come with black leather or gray leather. But what you really want is the gray interior 5-speed, which is the one like they had in the movie. But we understand if you need to have an automatic, and we've done those cars as well. The car in the movie also had the grooved hood. There was 3 different kinds of hoods. But, you know, some of these little details you can let slide. It just depends on what we have available and what you're willing to spend and how long you're willing to take on it. Now, let's kind of talk about some of the options of the car. There really aren't any. We used to do a lot of different things, but what we've decided is we really only want to build replicas of the original DeLorean time machine. As the restored A car sits at the Peterson Museum currently in Los Angeles, the screen use car. We basically want to build replicas of that, and we use that as our gold standard. We've taken hundreds of pictures of that car, every square inch of it, and we replicate that car as best we can onto these DeLoreans. We don't really take special requests. We don't want to do anything weird. We only build replicas of the car as it was represented in the film Back to the Future. And of course, the version of the car we like to do is the car that was seen in the first movie. It went through all different versions of itself in the first film, finally ending in the final scene with Mr. Fusion. Mr. Fusion is seen through all 3 movies, and it is the most popular option. Some people are interested in the plutonium chamber, and we get that. Those are really cool looking. But we found that if you go out in your car with the plutonium chamber, the first question that people are going to ask is, where's Mr. Fusion? People like Mr. Fusion, and quite frankly, it just makes things a little bit easier. It is possible for us to do the plutonium chamber, but it is a significant price increase, and it does take much longer, just as long as you're aware of that. Now, in the past, you're going to see videos that we've done where we've had fog machines and we've had different things. I think we're going to cease doing the fog machines because they're really problematic. The fog machines, they fail a lot. They require a lot of batteries. They just cause a lot of issues. And quite frankly, you're generally not allowed to use them inside, and when you try to use them outside, the wind just blows the fog away. What they used in the film was liquid CO2. They used huge canisters that blew out the back. It's really difficult to replicate that, and it's very expensive. And the fog machine thing, it just doesn't really work. As far as other options go, there's really not a lot you can do. Building the car the way it was in the film is how we do it. Now, if you're cool with that, let's proceed. There's a lot going on back here. One of the things that we do is we take out the back window, just like they did in the film, except in the movie, they just left the back window out. This was all open, and the wires and things just dumped into the back. And, well, you wouldn't be protected from rain or weather or exhaust. We build a custom aluminum rear shelf that is sealed to keep out water and also to keep out gases from the engine. We put a lot of work into all of the little parts that go back here, and each of these parts are replicated out of different types of materials. Some are metal, fiberglass, polyresins, and other materials. Our goal is to try to replicate exactly each of the parts. I mention this because I've seen other builders do things where they try to use maybe off-the-shelf items like a coffee thermos or a PVC pipe, or, you know, they use like planter pots and you know, just all kinds of funny things. And if you don't know what you're looking at, well, you may not realize how ridiculous some of these things are. But what we've done over the years is we've gotten a hold of the actual real parts that we have. We've made detailed molds of those parts, and then when we replicate the car, it appears cosmetically exactly as it should. You know, these are non-functional parts. They're just here for looks. Some of this wiring is active, but most of it is not. And you're probably not going to leave the car sitting outside like the one that Universal Orlando does. You're probably going to keep it in your air-conditioned garage like we do. So, will it withstand weather? Yes, we designed it to withstand weather. You can wash the car by hosing it off. Should you leave it outside? Would you leave your Lamborghini or your Ferrari or your Rolls Royce outside? No, you wouldn't. So, it's a very detailed thing. You don't want to leave it parked under a tree. Probably not a good idea. Keep the car covered up or inside of a climate-controlled garage. Now, you'll notice these bands are lit with these cool white LEDs. The original car used a white phosphorescent neon, and we have built the car with neon before, but it's made of glass. It's not a good idea for a car that drives around. We use this cool white neon because if you watch the movie carefully, you'll see that the bands were white. A lot of the toys and a lot of other fans will do their versions of the car with blue. We're not a fan of the blue. We like to do it exactly as the car was. Not the way the car is depicted in comic books or in toys, but the way that it actually was. Rather than using neon, we're using the technology of today, LEDs, but it gives about the same type of look. Industrial Light and Magic added some digital blue and lightning, and every time they re-edit the movie, it seems like they get a little bluer. But if you go back and watch the original VHS, you'll see that it was just clearly white. That's an argument between a lot of Back to the Future fans, but I mention this because I've had people ask me to do color-changing lights or different things, and we just don't do that. We do the car as it was built for the film Back to the Future, and no other way. Well, inside here you'll see the heart of the time machine, the flux capacitor. It's what makes time travel possible. And you'll see all of this represented in its glory the same way it was in the film. Let's hop inside and, well, give you a good close-up look of what you'd be getting in your time machine. Now, I've showed this in other videos, but I think it bears repeating. Let's show how the time circuits work. This is the time drive switch. Set it in the center for standby, and you'll see this red light is on here. And then we'll turn it on. And here's the time circuits and the plutonium gauges. Now, let's pay attention to this tiny little micro switch here on the side of the drive switch being up or down. It's going to be up. That's going to come important here in just a second. Let's show you how you program the time circuits. Let's start with that famous date, November 5th, 1955. Now, I want you to pay attention to what I just did there. When you're putting in a date, like for instance, you know, this October 21st, 1985, you put in the month, the day, the year, and the time, and then you have to follow that with either a 1 for PM or a 0 for AM. Let's try this date. October 21st, 1985, 0121 0 for AM, and then press enter. Simple as that. Now, how do you move that down to the next row? You can do that in a couple of different ways. There's a little tiny button behind here that you can just feel, and you press that. You see how it moves down? That's one way of doing it. There's another way of doing it. Let me change the date so we'll be able to tell. All right. The next way of changing it is there is a little knob here, and you may not be able to see it on video. There's a little knob here on the front of the time drive switch. Now, if you can see this speedometer, when you spin this knob, it will change the speed of the speedometer. Whenever the speed reaches 88 miles an hour, we're going to go through a time event, meaning the flux capacitor is going to go bright. The spectrum analyzer behind me is going to go bright. The times are going to change. The needles are going to drop to 0. Let's watch what happens when I roll it up to 88 miles an hour. All right, there we go. Time's changed. So it takes a few seconds to get through the next time. And I don't know if you can tell over there, but those needles over there have changed. Now, what happens here is when you turn the time circuits off, let's say you've arrived at your destination at another time. If you remember in the film, the first time that happens and he turns the system back on, you know, you're out of plutonium. So you got to flip this little switch to reset everything. And then everything should come back on again. Now, there's another way of doing that. If you actually drive 88 miles an hour, there's a GPS unit in here that will actually replicate that. But we don't recommend you drive 88 miles an hour. You'll get a ticket if you do that. So let's change the time again. Okay. Also, an interesting note, you can change the year at will. Let's see here. I think oh, it won't let you do it. Okay. I'm not doing it right. I'll show you this again. All right, now that we've changed, or now that we're back, here's another way of changing the time. There is a button marked reset on this box. When you press it, it gives what's called a time event. Speedometer is going to go up to 88 miles an hour. Times are going to change. Needles are going to drop. Flux capacitor is bright. Thing in the back is going to move. You've seen now everything's happened. It's on a little bit of a delay, just like it was in the film, because the person who's programmed this for us has carefully timed it exactly as it was in the film. All right, now we're going to turn this little switch down so that it doesn't do the empty thing that when we reset it. Okay. Now, let's say you want to have the current time in here. Well, all you have to do to have the current time running on the present time is just put in the current time, have a time event, and then leave it. And then that, because this will start counting up, you'll notice that this will go up by a minute as we keep going. And that's pretty much how the time circuits work. The rest of the DeLorean is stock in here. All the controls for the air conditioning and all that kind of thing. This radio is just a mock-up. This is an actual brand new old stock working Kraco radio. This is the same radio that they put in the A car at the museum. But it's just here for mock-up. I mean, it's, you know, it's not really working. So it's all here for display. This is a demonstration from the other view of when you're doing a time event. The speedometer is now ramping up to 88 miles an hour. And watch what happens when we get up to 88. Notice the spectrum analyzer and the flux goes bright. And that's a time event, and that's how that works. All of this stuff digitally talks together. They're all connected with a serial digital system so that they all interact with each other perfectly. Okay, to keep things simple, this is all the electronics. Pretty simple. This battery here works only the props, and it is not connected to the car. And that's important. And what I mean by that, it is not connected to the car battery, which is over there behind the passenger seat. This battery has nothing to do with the function of the car. It doesn't start the car or work the headlights or anything like that. It's only here to work the props, as is this fuse block and this emergency cutoff. You may find yourself displaying the car inside of a convention center or somewhere. And the important thing is they are going to want you to disconnect the car battery over there, and we'll show you how that works in a second. But this switch will allow you to kill basically everything at once. That's an emergency cutoff or to prevent the battery from draining. And that turns everything on and feeds power to these basic fuses, which runs everything in here. There's also a battery charger connected to this that's mounted behind the bulkhead wall there and feeds out the bottom of the car, which we'll show you how that works in a second. And you can plug the car in for permanent display, or just to charge the car up, whichever you want, and it'll keep everything here running indefinitely. Okay, behind the passenger seat is the actual car battery. This battery that you see back here is the original location for the DeLorean's car battery. That's where they put it. And we put in this emergency cutoff where you can kill the power to the battery. And sometimes that's a requirement for parking and displaying the car. But when you want to park the car, kill the power to it. DeLoreans have been known to have battery drainage problems, but this just prevents it. So this would prevent somebody from accidentally, maybe starting the car or turning the lights on or something that's unrelated. The reason I keep these two separate systems is you can have all this stuff running. Let's say you were running on batteries and you kill the battery, the prop battery with all your lights, you still can start the car. And also it shares the same charger that I talked about earlier, which is run underneath here from behind here, and I'll show you how that works. I really can't get the camera down low enough, but right down under here is hidden. There's a little port. I'm using this broomstick to show you. There's a port that leads into a regular plug. You can plug an extension cord under there and it runs right up in there. The reason we put it there is simply because normally when you park the car for display, you're going to back it in this angle and you're going to want that front area displayed, and this area is more usually against the back of the wall, or you can run the plug under the wheels and out the back or wherever you want to put it, and it's just a little bit more hidden and less wire. A common question is, how do you work on the DeLorean? How do you get to the engine? How do you service it? Believe it or not, the car remains completely stock. We don't alter the electrical system, the fuel system, the brake system, anything. All of these things are simply attached to the body. And the engine deck opens the same way the original did. Not only on the film, but on a regular DeLorean. Now we've modified it slightly so that you can open it immediately, because the original film version, it was locked on there. You had to remove 20 screws in order to take it off. But a DeLorean, you don't have that luxury. If it's overheating or you need to get to it to service it, you need to be able to open this immediately. So it's not hindered in any way. So if you want to check the oil or the coolant or anything, it's simple. All you have to do is lift this up, just like this. It's on the original hinges. Put a couple of prop rods here. You can work on the car, or take out 4 bolts and remove the entire rear deck lid and set it aside if you want to do a major service. But it's as simple as that. The original stock PRV V6 is still in there, unfortunately, and it's a stock DeLorean. Everything about the car is completely stock. So for instance, if you were importing this car to another country, we've sent these cars to Australia, Italy, England, France, all over the world. It's just like importing any other vehicle. Now you might want to check with your local countries or counties' laws as far as putting certain things attached to the vehicle. But the emissions and all the other things about it are exactly the same as a 1981 DeLorean. And in most cases, you can register the car as an antique. For instance, here in Texas, where we are now, after 25 years, you can register the car as an antique, and it's void of being inspected or even having insurance. You can get a 5-year tag for $40. A lot of great things. So check with your, local DMV for the registration. Talking about insurance, you're going to want to get what's called an agreed stated value policy from a collector car agency like Grundy or something like that. And you're going to want to insure the car for the amount you paid for it, or what value you want to place on it, for like $125,000. And that way your premiums are going to reflect that. And if there is a total loss situation, like it's stolen or on fire or tornado or something, you'll be covered. Because otherwise, you're only going to be covered for the value of the DeLorean itself, which is going to be much less than half of the entire build. And that's not going to be good for you. So that's just some friendly advice from a guy that's owned 40 of these. I hope this answers some of the basic questions about your interest in buying a DeLorean time machine replica. We have a lot of videos on this channel going back to 2007 talking about these cars. We have over 100,000 subscribers as of this recording. So you can find a lot of other videos of all the other cars that we've done. In the video link description, you'll see a direct link to our Facebook page, Bob's Prop Shop, where you can go look at our photo album section and see all the cars that we've ever built in our entire history from beginning to end. So we have a lot of proof of the work that we've done, and if you contact us, Maybe there's one of our cars in your area that you can go visit at a museum or a theme park or a private collection or something if you wanted to see one in person. Or you could come to our shop either here in Dallas, Texas, or our shop in Las Vegas and come out and see one of our cars that we have maybe on display there. We are in the process of moving the entire shop to Las Vegas permanently, so maybe when you see this video in the future, we will no longer be here in Dallas. But so this video, you might be watching it 5 years later. I don't know. Time is a funny thing. Anyway, you can also visit, if you check the link in the description, a website we have called timemachineforsale.com, and it's just a basic FAQ where you can look at some of the things. Again, the market costs change on these cars, and that fluctuates the value of our builds. So it's just like the price of gold or anything else. But DeLoreans seem to be going up. And I can tell you that the DeLorean time machine is a good investment because I am increasingly annoyed to see my cars be resold secondhand for more than the people paid to have them built. It's one of the few cars that you can invest in that will actually appreciate in value. A lot of times people will spend a lot of money on a custom car, and then when they sell it, they get a third of what they put into it because it's just the way it is. But Back to the Future and the DeLorean time machine is an icon of the 80s, and it's just not going away anytime soon. People love this car. It's very timeless, and the way we build them is very durable. And we have cars that have been on the road for 10 years, and they're still great. So, I think I answered all your questions. I look forward to reading your comments down below, and visit us on Facebook at Bob's Prop Shop. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm at Videobob Mosley on Facebook. So I think we've covered it. I think that's it. If you need to see more, just shoot me a message. And if you want to buy one of these cars, I will tell you, we have had a consistent waiting list to get a car since we first opened the shop. We generally don't have one ready to go. You might get lucky. But if your dream is to have a DeLorean time machine, hit me up. I'm your guy. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I'm Videobob.